welcome to City Week, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Alton West. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with a guest from Harmony House. She is the community educator and also the teen dating violence advocacy.
There you go.
I am sitting today with Lakae Ford. Lakae, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you come on the show, and I know this is your first time. I learned to say this is your first time even in our building, Lakae.
That's the first time.
Well, Lakae, let me ask you now, where have you been?
Under a rock.
Well, we won't say under a rock, but you've just not been to City Hall before,
I haven't
right?
been to City Hall. No.
To that, though, Lakae, this is my third taping in this set here at City Hall. Prior to that, we were located over at the old post office. You do know where that is, right?
I do know.
Okay, all right, very good. Well, Lakae, tell us, you're with Harmony House. Tell us a little bit about your role as the community educator.
So as a community educator, I'm really able to go in, do different speaking engagements, whether it be with adult presentations, child presentations, or what have you. We're able to talk about what Harmony House is, what Harmony House does. And so by the time I leave, I want people to know that we are a domestic violence shelter, but we are also a domestic violence program. And so I want people to know that we're a 14-bed facility. I want people to know that we accept men, women, and children. We do not discriminate. If you're being abused and you are seeking an emergency shelter, come to us. But I also want people to know that if you don't want to come in, you don't necessarily have to. Everybody is not a fan of community living. I understand that. Everybody doesn't necessarily need to come in to seek services, but you may need a temporary restraining order. You may need help with alimony, your divorce. You may need help if you're a sexual assault victim and you want to understand the process of what getting a rape kit looks like. Okay. And so that's kind of what we have.
Okay. And it's such an important part of our community because we don't realize, those of us on the outside of a situation don't realize the situation that a person may be going through. You all being an agency here in our community that provides those services, see it firsthand. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those things today.
Indeed.
And I know that this month is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month.
There you go.
I got it all out, didn't
You got it all out.
There, and when we talk about teen violence, you think about, I try to reflect back to my years, that's been many moons ago, as a teen. And I think, when you think about dating, you don't necessarily equate dating and violence to back in my generation. But I guess now in this generation and the generations a little bit before this one, it's almost like writing a note, will you go with me? Talk a little bit about why do you think teens allow themselves to be subject of violence?
Well, I think it's a lot of different factors, actually. I think their norm, some of them only see what they can at home in their community. And so if all they're seeing is violence, if all they're seeing is their parents yelling at each other, shoving each other down the steps, or cussing each other out, they may equate that to love. And so if their significant other is doing that to them, they may say, oh, well, they only do it because they love me. Because that's their norm.
Right.
So a lot of it is really your home life factor, your upbringing, and some of those traumas that you take along as a child. You start to develop them in your teenage years. But when you develop them, it just becomes a part of who you are. And you don't recognize it, that it's unhealthy. You don't recognize it that as something you don't deserve, and that something that you can actually get away from.
It's so so important. Let me ask you a question, because so many times too, Lakae, people feel like, oh, it's not going to happen to me, it's not going to happen to my child. Is that myth or is that fact?
It is a myth.
Okay.
And it's great that you bring that up. When we sit and we talk to parents, a lot of parents aren't exactly sure of how to bring up the conversation of healthy relationships. There was actually a survey done where it said that 60% of the parents who chose not to talk to their child about dating relationships chose not to do so because their child wasn't in a relationship. Well, they have stats that say that children date as early as 12. And so we can't just ignore it and step away from that reality that it may actually be happening. Your child may be in a relationship. Your child may be texting and having conversations via social media with someone they're at school 8 hours a day. So who knows
Yes.
really what they're doing? But it's important to go ahead, even if you aren't aware of your child being in a relationship, to go ahead and have a conversation about what a healthy relationship looks like.
Absolutely. That's a kind of an alarming number when you say 60% feel like their child is not in a relationship. And then it turns out it could be an abusive relationship.
That's right.
What do you see? And you said that dating, stats have shown or studies have shown that kids start dating as early as 12.
Right.
Is there, out of that 60%, or is there one category, elementary, middle, or high school students that are a greater risk of being in an abusive relationship?
They typically look at anywhere between middle and high school. They say you start dating as early as 12, and so those patterns of dating abuse start to kind of show itself in middle school. But by the time it's in high school, they have statistics that say 1.5 million high school students every year experience a physically abusive relationship.
1.5 million?
1.5 million. And we're not just talking about girls. I think that's something that we need to get out of too. It's a stigma that we attach to it, that only girls can be abused, only girls are the victims, and that's not true at all. We have young boys that are also victims of abuse, even in their dating relationship, and we have grown men who are victims of abuse in their dating relationship, but it starts very young.
Very young. And that's sad. Let's talk a little bit, Lakae, about the cycle of abuse, because I know that so many times people feel like, I want you to explain, because I know you deal with it every day.
I got you.
Okay.
A lot of people ask, why would someone stay in a relationship? And I think it's important to understand that domestic violence is not always present in the relationship at all times. People look at domestic violence, well, I wouldn't be dealing with that. That's not a relationship I would deal with. But it's a cycle, and a cycle is full circle. So at the top of your circle, you have the honeymoon stage. Everything is going great. That's when your boo phase, or whatever you want to call it. You have date nights. You're just getting to know each other. You're vibing. Everything is perfect in your relationship. You think nothing can come between you and your relationship. And then something happens. It's like a snap almost. Something happens, and you find that you're not able to communicate with your partner like you used to. You find that you're walking on eggshells because you don't want to trigger your partner. You don't want to make them upset. You notice that they're a little irritable lately, and so you're really not trying to get them to snap or lash out. You just want to make them happy because that's your dating partner. You're like, well, what can I do to make them happy? And so you find yourself walking on eggshells. You don't bring up certain topics. You don't bring up certain concerns. But then a snap happens. At the bottom of the circle is when that person is verbally abused. That person is physically assaulted. That person is sexually abused. Whatever it may be, at the bottom of the circle, abuse is occurring. So no matter how beautiful it was in the honeymoon stage, no matter how much you tried to walk on eggshells so that person didn't snap, they snapped anyway. And they abused you. But then you have the apology phase, and they're sorry. They didn't mean for it to happen. It'll never happen again. They were just stressed out from work, or, they failed that test and they just lashed out on you. You should have known they were going to react that way, so it's really your fault. But they're sorry. It'll never happen again. And then you're back to honeymoon stage. Like nothing ever happened.
Where's that police stage in all of this? That's what I'm looking for.
And there's the question. And the police stage may come in that.
Okay.
But if you're stuck on the honeymoon stage, like a lot of people in domestic violence relationship, they just think, okay, well, maybe this was a one-time occurrence. They said they were sorry. I know that they love me. We were just here in honeymoon stage. Everything was going perfectly, and there's no time limit. So it might have been going perfectly for 6 months, a year. And so in your mind, am I really going to give up a year of what I've invested into this relationship because they had a bad moment? And they apologize. And a lot of times, no, they aren't.
Oh my.
So that's the reality of it.
And that was going to lead me to my next question. Why do you think somebody continues to stay or allow themselves to be subject to an abusive relationship when they know, okay, yeah, the first time, people may have had a bad moment, been stressed or whatever the case. But then, like you said, when that cycle just continues, why do you think people allow themselves to continue to stay in a relationship of such?
I mean, I think I think that's a two-sided question. On one hand, you want to ask, there are reasons, there are factors why people choose not to leave, not necessarily choose to stay, but they choose not to leave. Because if you say, why do you choose to stay, then it's kind of like victim blaming in one way. And we want to hold the abuser accountable. Instead of asking, why are they staying, say, why is the abusive person abusing them? Because it is a choice at the end of the day. You made a choice to pick up your fist and hit somebody with it. So, but there are factors in play that make it appear of, no, that person may be fearful of their lives. They may be fearful of, if they're an adult and they have children and they're in a marriage, maybe they're fearful of how their children are going to get fed, especially if they're the breadwinner. Maybe they're just hopeful that they're going to go back to that honeymoon stage and that it just didn't happen that way. For teen dating violence, maybe you fear that you'll get dropped from your social circle. You fear of being judged by your peers, fear of rumors getting started, fear of a lie being spread, especially if they're blackmailing you. They've cut you off from your family, your friends. And so there's a lot of different reasons why people stay in those relationships.
Well, let's give them some hope. What are some help hotlines that you all provide here through your agency?
Right. So Harmony House, we do have a 24-hour hotline. And I like to tell people that we are always open.
Okay.
We do not close. we don't close on holidays. We don't close on vacation days. We don't close on pay days, snow days that don't snow. We're never closed.
Always open.
We're always open.
Like the mailman, right?
There you go.
Gotta
you can
get
call
through.
us at 3 o'clock in the morning. We'll be there.
Okay.
Our hotline number is 706-885-1525. Again, that number is 706-885-1525. And we ask people and encourage people even to reach out and give that number a call whenever they feel like their backs are getting thrown, even if they just need advice. Because our advocates are willing and ready to help.
Well, very good. Lakae, this is awesome news. A very good program. Good to know that we have such a caring resource here in our community. And I definitely would like to have you come back on and kind of talk some more about the services and things that you all offer through Harmon House. So I want to thank you today for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for more City Week in just a moment.